Christopher Nolan's Interstellar is a film about exploration. And not just interstellar travel, although of course that does play a large role. Beyond exploring space, Interstellar also explores the concept of time and of dimensions beyond what we can perceive. It explores the nature and power of human connection and the role of humanity in the universe, among other themes. But on a different level, it explores certain conventions of film narrative structure and the science fiction genre. These two concepts are closely intertwined. A film genre consists of a set of conventions in both content and form, narrative structure included. As Peter Verstraeten writes in Film Narratology, every new genre film is burdened with these conditions and is continually forced to take an implicit stance on its own narrative stipulations. He then goes on to add that being aware of the narrative conditions of genres also enables us to recognize any deviations from standard patterns as meaningful interventions. There are also narrative conventions in film unrelated to genre, and Interstellar has been noted for being relatively unique in Nolan's filmography and how close it follows them. Vivian Sobchak, for example, described Interstellar as a classically constructed narrative served by traditional continuity editing in Film Comment, taking the time to note such a choice as uncharacteristic on Nolan's part. As opposed to much of Nolan's filmography, Interstellar is not about breaking conventions, either structurally or thematically. But it's not about blindly following them either. It's about bending them. But what does that mean, exactly? Well, in this video essay, we're going to look at the example of narrative conflict. In talking about conventions of genre and narrative structure, conflict is an important area of overlap. If you look at Sid Field's screenplay, The Foundations of Screenwriting, arguably the seminal text on the aforementioned three-act structure, you will find variations of the following statement repeated no less than 5 times. All drama is conflict. Without conflict, you have no action. Without action, you have no character. Without character, you have no story. And without story, you have no screenplay. But how does this overlap with the science fiction genre? It has to do with AI. When artificial intelligence plays an important role in a science fiction film, it almost always ends up leading to the conflict, often codified as man versus machine. A genre can be seen as an evolving thing. So let us just look at examples from the past year, 2015. Here we have 2 examples. The latest financially successful, if not critically acclaimed, installment of a mega franchise, and a relatively small budget but critically successful independent film. But what they do have in common is artificial intelligence in a prominent role, and said artificial intelligence conflicting with our human protagonists. As soon as AI is involved in Interstellar, this convention is addressed.
Step away from the fence!
Don't shoot. I'm not armed. The daughter's in the car.
Even before Tars is identified as a robot, he's identified to us as a threat.
Don't be afraid!
How did you find this place?
Where's my daughter?
You had the coordinates for this facility marked on your map. Where did you get those coordinates?
Where's my daughter?
Don't make me take you down again. Sit down.
What, do you still think you're a Marine, pal? Marines don't exist anymore. I got grunts like you mowing my grass.
Where did you find those coordinates?
Yeah, but you don't look much like a lawnmower. I think I'll turn you into an overqualified vacuum cleaner.
No, you won't. Tars, back down, please.
And then, of course, the next time we see Tars.
There he is, Mach 1. Everybody good? Plenty of slaves for my robot colony?
I gave him a humor setting.
Hey, Tars, what's your honesty parameter?
90%.
90%.
As Interstellar continues, we actually get a reversal of the traditional man versus machine plot. Cooper begins by seeing them as a threat and looking at them suspiciously, but over time grows to trust them. Indeed, there are multiple occasions over the course of the film in which Tars or Case come to the aid of a member of Cooper's team. But, like I said before, Interstellar isn't about going directly against or breaking conventions. It's about bending them. Instead of this, we get this.
If he takes control of that ship, we're dead.
He'd ruin us?
Oh, he is ruining us.
Dr. Mann, please respond. Dr. Mann, please respond.
He doesn't know the Endurance docking procedure.
Well, the autopilot does.
Not since Tars disabled it.
Nice. What's your trust setting, Tars?
Lower than yours, apparently.
But what about the classic narrative convention of fundamental conflict? There's an idea that any narrative conflict can be sorted into one of a certain number of categories. These three are the most standard, but a few others often join the list. Regardless of whether or not this idea is valid, Interstellar provides examples of all of these conflicts.
Now don't go. Don't go, you idiot. Don't go!
Let me guess. Was your ghost?
It knocked it off my shelf.
However, just as is the case with man versus machine, none of these conflicts could accurately be described as the fundamental conflict of Interstellar. But there is something else that can. This.
I'm not afraid of death. I'm an old physicist. I'm afraid of time.
Hey, summer's down. 45 to an hour.
Yeah. This stuff of life, huh? What's this gonna cost us, Bran?
A lot. Decades.
This idea of man versus time is embedded in Interstellar, in the mise-en-scène, even in the score. For example, the Endurance is a giant clock. In one of the most dramatic scenes in the film, Dr. Mann's failed docking attempt in the aftermath, the Endurance is shown spinning out of control in a clockwise direction. This visual motif of the clock, that universal symbol of the passage of time, is present throughout the film. From the Endurance, to elements of the set, to actual watches. And then of course there's the score. In the scenes with the greatest conflict, the tempo of the score increases to exactly 60 beats per minute, literally a ticking clock.
We need the recorder.
Back to the Ranger now.
So we can look at this as introducing a new sort of fundamental conflict. But how does this bend the convention of a central conflict in a narrative? It has to do with how conflict is resolved. The conventional narrative conflict usually goes a little something like this.
No! Dr. Man, there's a 50-50 chance you're gonna kill yourself. Those are the best odds I've had in years.
The conflict is resolved when one defeats or breaks the other. Victory over time, or breaking time, would be to travel back in time. Unfortunately,
Is there any possibility? I don't know, some clever way we could maybe, I don't know, jump in a black hole, came back to years. Don't shake your head at me.
Time is relative, okay? It can stretch and it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards.
however, that does not mean that Cooper loses. In the end, the resolution Interstellar reaches in regards to time is not a case of winning or losing. It's not an either or. It's an and. Instead of breaking, it's bending. Cooper bends time to communicate with Murph, and not only that, he uses a watch, a symbol not just of their relationship, but of time, to communicate the necessary information. So then, the resolution to the conflict of man versus time is not one winning and the other losing, it's the versus becoming an and.